Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Small Business Success Talk. I am your host, Christy Smallwood, and I am so super excited that you are listening in today because we're going to talk about strategic execution. But first, I always say a huge shout out to my sponsor partner, which is the Chamber of St. Matthews. If you are not involved in your local chamber, where you can build a solid support system of your peers in the community, where you can get connected to other people in the community, other business owners, as well as the community at large, go through your chamber. And if you don't have one and you really want one, come talk to me. I will hook you up with ours. The Chamber of St. Matthews is very lively, thriving bunch. We have a very special culture around here where we take what we do very seriously, but ourselves, not so much, because we do like to have some fun while we're at it. It's kind of the part and an element of success in business is to be able to have some fun with it. If you don't believe that, this is not the podcast for you. So, again, my name is Christy Smallwood. I don't even know why I said it that officially, but here we are. I own a couple businesses in the Louisville, Kentucky area. I can work nationwide. I do all kinds of things. Most of what I do is fueled from strategy. Now, today's episode, you are only getting me as an extension of the conversation we had in the previous episode of what strategy really is. So I've just launched this campaign of a summer of strategy to kind of teach people strategy is not what you thought it was. It's not putting it in a binder on the shelf and never using it. Strategy is actually how to think different about what you're doing, thinking it through before you do it. That's really what strategy is. And a strategy is a type of plan. So a strategic plan is because you've thought it through. You didn't just piece some shit together to see if something was going to work. You're actually sitting with it. You're taking time to figure out what you really want and then work an actual strategy towards that. The strategy meaning, what do I need to avoid? Where are my strengths, where are my weaknesses, and all of this kind of stuff. So being able to think differently as you do different will always super be helpful. But this conversation in this episode is specifically for the execution of that strategy. Okay. You've taken the time to dive deep into who you are, what you really want, the kind of impact you want to have in the world, who you want to impact. So meaning not just your target audience, but that best buyer that you know them so well that they are your best friends. Like you know them better. Like you know how they stack shit in their refrigerator, not just what's in it. You know all the things. That is developing that foundation for your strategy. And then the next step of that is setting those priorities of what needs to happen, the objectives, right? You have objectives of, I want this big thing to happen and certain things need to be accomplished for this big thing to happen. Well, those certain things that need to be accomplished are the objectives. They're not specific yet. They're just, I need to get that accomplished. Then what we do is we prioritize those objectives. And then out of the top priority, we start setting some goals around it. If you are a goal setter, if you're not a goal setter, don't worry. You still just need to get it down to key activities that you are doing daily, weekly, monthly. And now we're diving deep into the tactical stuff of executing on your strategic plan. This is where a lot of people may fall short. Like you work really hard to develop this plan, but then you don't do anything with it. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Don't just not do it. For me, it's a matter of strategic thinking matched with flawsome as execution wins this game. But you need to both think differently and do it. So taking action is just as important as thinking differently. So when we start to take action towards the things that we want, Again, I've already talked about, you go listen to the other episode about setting that the strategic foundation for this, because that's going to get you your core messaging, your brand identity, how you want to position yourself in the marketplace, setting those objectives and goals, knowing your target audience and that best buyer. Well, let's now talk about setting expectations. I don't know if you ever watched the show. There was a show called Insane Pools. Okay. And I fell in love with this show. It was just fantastic. I now want a lagoon pool for whatever my future house is going to be. I don't even care if it's a tiny home with a massive lagoon pool in the back. I don't care. I'd be in the pool. I'd be in my lagoon, my peaceful hideaway the entire time. Have I expressed enough how much I really want one of these? They're just amazing. And the people who put these things together are also amazing. It's incredible the designs they come up with the things that they can do. And all so my like I may have an expectation that as I'm writing a book and I want to put it out in the world, it's going to come out in the world like a lagoon pool. Like my expectation is big and creative, and it's just everybody wants to be a part of that. But if I haven't thought it through strategically nor executed well, then it probably comes out like an above ground pool where I don't even have a fancy little deck around it and I still have to weed eat all the grass. That's not what you want. So, first thing about getting your work done is setting and managing your own expectations in it. I am one of those people. I'm still working on this today as we speak. I am still working on this. I have this flawed idea that I can do 5 things at once, and I can then multiply that by 100 in 24 hours. Like I have 24 hours. What am I doing with it? I don't like the fact that my body needs at least 7 to sleep. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I would love to have half of those hours back so that I could apply it somewhere else, but that's not healthy. I'm just saying I don't like it. I like to be able to work on my stuff. Some might say I'm addicted to work, and I would say mind your own business. But I digress. So when I know I've learned over the years, the past couple of years definitely, when I set my own workload, I have to remove over half of it. When I set a time frame of allotting some hours or a particular amount of time to a certain kind of task, I triple the time it takes to get it done. So and this is part of me managing my expectations, because if I think I'm going to get 10 things done in an hour and I manage to get half of one, then I'm upset, a little disappointed, and maybe slightly pissed off, mostly at myself. But that energy, okay? So if you've not heard me talk about the energy we bring to the table, the room, the moment, the other people, the mood, the attitude, it's an energy shift. People can feel it emanating off of you. If I come to that work fully frustrated, the work doesn't turn out well. It just doesn't. I've not put my best into it, because my best I left 100 yards ago because I'm just fuming around the house. So, being able to manage those expectations on the front end helps you manage the energy in which you put into the work. And that is going to matter. That's the bottom line of that. You need to manage your energy, your expectations, your mood as you are working on it. Think about, what was it? Mary Poppins. A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Um, how is the beginning of that song? In every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game. That needs to be part of what we put into our work. We need to have some good energy. Manage your expectations. Okay, so how do we do that? Like, get to the point, Christy. How do we do that? In the previous episode, I talked about those setting those objectives, the priority, and then picking the priority of the big thing first. Well, when these guys, I out of that show, Insane Pools, it's Lucas Lagoons is the business I'm talking about. These guys, they're just amazing. Um, he made a comment during one of the shows that it's a building one of these lagoons, right, is a constant game of chess. He has to visualize and plan 10 steps into the future to bring that vision to life. And that was Lucas. When you're thinking it through before you do, he strategizes this design. He already knows what he's going towards, but you still have to, like, he's pulling from nature these things. So there's some unknown variables in that. So what he does is he gathers that data as he's going. This is what you also need to do. So when he has that rock, he is fully studying those rocks and how to piece those rocks together to create the lagoon of his client's dreams. The first thing that he talks about is those objectives. Like when he talks to a client, he's asking, what pieces need to be included in here? Like a waterfall and a fire feature and maybe a lazy river of my own and some palm trees would be nice. I just want to see nature. I don't want to see neighbors. Like whatever the case may be, he gets those objectives for this. And then he needs to find out what the obstacles are. So this is another part of collecting that data, is knowing the obstacles. So let's say you live in a shotgun house and you have that whole barely 3 feet between you and your neighbor, barely 3 feet, but you need to somehow get a 6-foot wide rock back there to build your lagoon. You might have to rethink a couple things. So you need to know what those obstacles are that may be in your way. And that means sitting and taking the time to do your own research or get some help with that. I got a guy. His name's Chris Bonbright. He works with Curiosity Consulting. I'm totally shamelessly plugging him right now because you also want to know what are the obstacles in the marketplace. You want to do an industry dive. You want to see what's happening in your industry. You want to see what your competitors are doing. You don't need to be obsessed about your competitors, but you kind of need to be aware that they're there. You need to know what else could be happening in the world that's going to affect me. Remember 2020? Not a one of my business owners that I have talked to over the past 2 years ever thought to have a pandemic on their bingo card of threats. Not one time. And they were not prepared for it. Now, a lot of my business owners had been resilient enough to figure it out and they've made it through. Some had no option. Like their industry collapsed within weeks. Know the obstacles. And this takes time to do that research. Now, do you have to do it all at once? You can, but you don't have to. This is that coming back, making sure that you come back to your plan. This is why having that strategic plan up on the shelf does you no good. Does nobody any good. So come back to this on a regular basis so that you can monitor and watch for those obstacles. But you also want to look for, the opportunities that are out there. What are things that you didn't see before, but you're like, oh, that's a great idea. We're going to add that. That's a little extra that we can do because it fits with who we are, who we serve, and where we want to go. That opportunity fits. I think it's good. We can add to it. This is that part also that allows you to keep the work in the plan a little flexible. Okay. So you want to find those opportunities as well. And then out of that, those priorities and the objectives, you want to make sure you're doing the best thing first. And when the best thing is going to be that which is like the keystone of the entire project. Start that because it affects all the others in a bigger way, which means if you're doing the keystone and then you're building around it, that thing helps set the foundation for all of your work. It helps everything move a lot more efficiently. It helps it be effective. So you're hitting all of these checkpoints of everything that you really want within your business. But you want to find that first thing, the most important thing first. I always heard the phrase, I think it was in a church phrase, keep the main thing the main thing. I was like, what the hell is the main thing? What do you think the main thing is? Well, it's the same concept in your business. When you keep the main thing, set the first priority, do that keystone first. Okay. I think I've ad nauseum talked about setting those priorities. Have you gotten a hint on that one yet? You're like, God, yes, move along. The next thing about this, so we've talked about setting expectations for yourself so your energy's in the right space. I haven't, now we'll get to like pen to paper. Anything that you do from this point, when you figure out your key activities that support getting the work done for that priority or your goals, or however you've got that structured, is commit it to the calendar. Whether it be your calendar or you've delegated it out to your team, it needs to be on a calendar. There needs to be a timeline of, this is when we want to get this done. This is when I'm committing to do it. Any personal trainer is going to tell you, any coach is going to tell you, if you've got to have a level of commitment to actually do the work. Back to setting those expectations. If your energy's not good, you ain't going to want to do shit. So you need to commit to it, and then know that you need to check yourself as you're doing your work. It's yourself up in your head, in your heart, your soul, your internals checks. The getting it committed to your calendar helps you see a workflow. It also helps you see things in your systems that may or may not be working like you want it to. Workflowing, procedures, maybe even some policies, because if you've got a bigger team, they may want that PTO or holidays or whatever on the calendar. You have obstacles. Well, are you addressing that internally appropriately? And that goes to systems, processes, people. You're going to, putting it on a calendar, you're going to be able to see that pretty quickly. Before we get too much further into this, you need to understand, I'm a big fan of writing it down first. I have digital systems that are my backups, my reminders, my automations, but I will write it down first. I mean, that's why I even created my own planner system, so that I would be writing it down. I mean, everything from the strategy that I start with and revisit, I rinse and repeat on a regular basis. That's in the front of the book. I put my strategy in phases because I suck at setting like actual goals, but I have phases. I know my progression through it because I have priorities and objectives, and then I have key activities that go into my daily, and then I have tasks that I have to do each week, and then each day I've got it just enough space in that day. If I fill my boxes in each of these things for that day, that's all I'm going to get done that day. I have physically made sure on my piece of paper, I am not exceeding, I'm not going to be setting myself up for failure in my expectations. And then, remember walking around fuming and pissed off all day. I've set myself up physically on my piece of paper that this is all I can get done that day. And I don't know if you guys are looking, but sometimes I cheat and I put too much in there, and then I know I didn't get it all done that day. And that kind of sucks. I'd like to be able to set myself up for success, because and here's a little trick for you. I actually use a gold pencil to do my checklist. You know how you used to use like a red pen and do the red checks? I quit doing red because red is editing, and red means you got to change things and you've done bad. I use color psychology on myself, and I use a gold pencil so that by the end of this week, I should have a lot of gold checks. And the more gold checks I get, the higher likelihood I'm going to put a gold star at the top. I might even get me a little teacher sticker that says, good job for the week. I need validation too. So that's one of the things that I do there. So I write it down and then I duplicate it into a digital system. If you are comfortable going straight to a digital system, you go for it. To me, I can get more out of my brain. I do a brain dump when I can write it down. It's never pretty. I draw pictures. I will, do the brainstorming piece. That's how my brain works. Other people love spreadsheets and they just go straight to Excel and they start working there. This is going to be the other thing I'm going to tell you. Find that system that works for you and your personality. Personalities have a lot to do with how you behave in the world. If you are an analytical thinker, you probably want to go straight to a spreadsheet and all the things that spreadsheets can do for you, because that's how your brain works. That's how you behave. Me, I'm more of I'd like to think I'm super creative, but I'm not. I am creative though. I'm more of I'm a little scattered as I ping pong, I popcorn all over the place with my thoughts. But when I could do a brain dump and I get all those thoughts out onto my whiteboard, which I have 3 of those, I will then, once it's out of my brain into something and categorized and color coded and to where I can make it make sense, then it gets put into the digital system for not only me, but my team to use as well. Because if I just handed that shit over to them, it would drive them crazy. So I already know that. But what does it take for me to get it out of my head and into a useful system? And so this is why I write it down. As I'm writing stuff down and I'm planning to put, I'm then working it towards getting it on the calendar. I may have all kinds of crazy, wild ideas. They go on the board. Everything's worthy to go on the board. But when I commit to it on the calendar, I ask myself certain questions. First one, does this activity support an objective of the vision? If no, it does not get committed to. It goes in the idea bucket, but we're not committing to that right now. We can revisit that later when we do a rinse and repeat. Because maybe out of that idea, I just need to make some adjustments to it, and then it'll fit who I am and where I want to go and who I want to serve. Second question, is there enough time allotted for that activity? So when I mentioned before, I triple my time. I have worked myself into situations over the years. I do a lot of different activities. I've built my businesses to a point by myself. Now I have team members that do it, but I still train them on how to get better at what they're doing, at least to my level. And when I get people who are better than me on board, that'll be a magical day. I'll be looking around going, what? The challenge is I still learn new things all the time about those things, such as some video production stuff, or even doing my own podcast production, which that's split time now. I've got 2 of us working on it, or writing, blog writing. I've got, I do have a copywriter now. Love her. Thank you, Charlene. But when I sit down to do it, I used to okay, this is going to take me maybe an hour. Well, what I did not know was that my computer didn't want to work that day, or worse yet, my drive that I hold all those files in won't let me in. So I'm having technical difficulties. Then I got to go fix that technical difficulty. And by the time I get that done, it is 2 hours later. Or there might be a piece, because I suck at filing. I'm trying to find a specific thing to be able to do the activity. And that takes me off on a tangent for an hour. So what I thought I could get done in an hour is now turned into 3, because I didn't anticipate, I wasn't prepped ahead of time for that activity. So when you're looking at your activities, make sure, and you may not be like me, and if you're not, kudos to you. You run a tight ship, and that is awesome. But whenever you're like, damn, I didn't get near enough done in a day, go back to how much time are you allotting for that activity? Get that on the calendar. Again, back to me physically on my planner, only giving myself so much space. because I know darn good and well, if I add to that space, I've not given myself enough time to really work on that activity in a day, to give my full good mood self to the activity. All right. The next question is, what is needed to make this happen? So remember that thing, that specific thing I had to look for an hour? It'd be nice if I would write that down ahead of time. I'm telling you, these are things I've learned over the years. I'm giving you good advice here. I need to make sure I write that stuff down. What resources do I need? What um what resources really is what it boils down to. I need lighting, I need, soundproofing. I need the neighbor's dog to not be barking. I need all kinds of different things. And if it's something that I don't already have, then I need to make a note because that needs to go in the budget. For example, if I have an expo coming up and I don't have the signage I want or swag to put on the table, I need to get prepared for that. Like that has to now go on the calendar for, I got to get that done ahead of time so that everything is executed very well come time for the expo. So some of these things may seem very simple, but I'm just giving you simple examples that then pile on each other in a day. Take this concept and apply it to all of the activities. Okay. So what's needed? Those are resources. Who is needed? Next question is, who is needed to make this happen? So I already have, I'm on the hunt for additional people to bring on part-time, maybe part-time, to kind of try out to see if they're going to be a good fit for my culture. Cause that's a huge deal. And if they can hang or not. And if all that kind of stuff, as you're getting ready to bring people into your sphere, so to speak. So who's needed to make this thing happen? Well, sometimes in my world, I'm not the best person to make that thing happen. I need to bring in the best person to do it. So thus a copywriter, because while I can write a book and I can write a blog, that's fine. But to intentionally write copy that persuades and gets you to do something, I would just sit and talk to you all day. I'm like very conversational, and you're either going to do it or you're not. My personality and attitude gets in the way of that. So I bring in the copywriter so that sometimes she'll just double check me. Most of the time she writes it for me. And that's smart on my part because that's not my best forte. My logistics around here, I bring somebody in to help me get things cleaned up and organized and help me to look at it differently. Get who you need to make it happen. Make sure as a business owner, if somebody has not told you by now, you need to have, you definitely need to have an attorney, a business attorney. Don't get your family law person that's friendly. Get them to connect you to a business attorney. You need to have them on standby. You need to have a good accountant, one that's going to actually teach you something along the way so that you can hit your personal goals in life just as much as your business goals. If you only have an accountant that says, just give me your stuff, I'll do it, and they're doing your taxes and you're trusting that they're taking all the deductions, but yet you find out when you take all those deductions, you can't actually get a mortgage. You need to be told that ahead of time. So one thing affects the other. Who is needed to make it happen? So you need a good attorney on standby. You need the good accountant on standby. And you also need to get yourself a business coach. I know. I am one. Shameless plug for myself. However, when you have, and I would say this goes hand in hand, a business coach or an accountability partner, because we don't like to admit we need help. I totally understand that. You got this. You're in complete control. You know what you're doing. And then when you're by yourself, you're curled up in a little ball underneath your covers because you just can't face the world anymore. Don't do that. Get yourself somebody that holds everything you're going through in confidence for one. You need to feel comfortable in your vulnerability with somebody so that you've got that place to go to help think things through without feeling the weight of all of the responsibility, because that'll start telling you things in your head you don't need to be telling yourself, usually negative. And of course, back to setting expectations. You can't do this. You can't get this all done when you're fuming around the house frustrated. Can't get it all done. So get those people in place for you, regardless of what your activities look like. Okay. Next question. So we've asked ourselves, does the activity support an objective of the vision? Is there enough time allotted? What's needed to make this happen? So resources, and who is needed to make this happen? Who do you need to delegate to? Who's the best person on your team for this? Do you need to bring in a new team member for this? And then how adjustable is this activity if shit hits the fan? March of 2020, boom, done with that conversation. So can you make adjustments should your equipment break down, or we have the electricity goes out for a day or two, your POS system decides it doesn't want to wake up for the day, whatever that shit hitting the fan situation may be for you, how adjustable are the activities, those deadlines, meeting the client expectations? So how, asking yourself ahead of time, give it a color code and a signal or whatever to say, okay, we can if we need to, but we won't. But also then on the calendar, find those non-negotiables. Like, this is a do or die activity. We can't move it. It has to be done. So making sure that you know what you're not going to let yourself get away with. And then other things that if shit hits the fan, you can set your expectations better. Going back to what mood are you bringing to the table? All right. So now that we've got it all wrote down, now we're going to put it into your system. And again, if you were that person who's like, yeah, I'm just going to go straight to digital. Good for you. There are a crap ton of options out there for project management. There can be industry specific online project management software. There's generalized project management software. When you choose one, this is why I've talked about all of this other stuff first, because you will work this out a certain way. And that is going to be dependent on the type of person you are. What you want to do in your search for a digital system is know you first and then find the system that fits you best. Instead of you buying a system and trying to fit yourself in it, because then you won't use it. Now you're paying for something you're not using, and that affects the budget. You're now wasting money you could have kept. Don't make that vicious cycle. So start with knowing how you function first, and then go find that system that works best with you. That's my recommendation on that, because you do have hundreds of systems out there. Some top ones I've used before have been Trello and Asana, Monday, Workfront. That one's pretty intense. But all of these, they have a lot of similarities in project management stuff. But ultimately, again, you want something that you're going to enjoy using so that you will actually use it. When you do things, I'm going to talk to you real quick about your marketing plan. So very specifically, in your marketing plan, you definitely want to have a draft of a calendar of all of your marketing ideas. I don't know if they still call it this, because I haven't been in the corporate world for a while, but we called it a straw dog back in the day. And it's just a draft. You should take that calendar and be like, oh, okay, first things first. Let's say you're a retail business. Retail is seasonal. Specific times of the year, you're going to have certain kinds of sales. Memorial Day, Black Friday is on your list. You've got back to school time. You've got New Year's sales, like those kinds of things. are seasonal. You're going to want to put a sale in there. You already know that. Put it on the calendar. Plan for that. You already know what you want to say there. Those are some of the easier things. But if you don't put it on a calendar to commit to it, then you're like the day before, oh shit, what are we going to say tomorrow? Tomorrow is Black Friday. I don't know. You know better than that. Okay. And the way to get that fixed is committing it to a calendar. Have a specific marketing calendar for your messaging out. That's a non-negotiable for me. Specific marketing calendar. Do it. And then the rest of it falls under what's called a Gantt chart. You have a timeline, a calendar timeline of you're working on a certain project and it's going to take you 3 months. And another project that overlays that project might take you 2 months. And, if you've got 5 projects that are the objectives underneath your whole thing, you want the end date of that launch. Everybody needs to match up on that end date. But all these different projects may start at different times. So those Gantt charts can be, especially if you're a visual person like I am, I love a good Gantt chart. I can see instantly what's happening with that. If you're not your spreadsheets person, then type it out and put it in a spreadsheet. Again, that system that works best for you. The whole point is get it out of your head into something useful. Okay, so we've talked through a lot in this episode already. Start with that big rock, that priority, those objectives. If you want to set goals towards it, absolutely do that. Consider the SMART goals. It's an easy way to do it. If you've not heard of a SMART goal, it's you spell out SMART. S for specific. M, is it measurable? A, is this attainable? R, I actually do 2 R's. R, is it reasonable to do? But really the real R should be resources. Like, what do I need to put in the budget for this? And then T is the timeline. What's the timeline for it? So that's setting a very specific goal with underneath that objective to hit the vision. Okay. But starting with the big rock, your keystone, is to build everything else around it, because the rest of your activities you're going to have a lot of those activities that should be rhythmic. And what I mean by that is they're going to feel very routine. Create a routine on purpose that helps you stay consistent with the work that needs to go out. Let's talk your marketing again. Okay. Especially in your marketing. Make it a marketing Monday where you take a 1 day a week. I'm going to concentrate on my marketing content for this week or the rest next week. Ideally, you'd be a month ahead, but it's kind of hard to do that nowadays. But at a minimum, be like, okay, I am going to be intentional. I'm going to spend this time on it. This is what's going to happen. Make a routine. My Fridays are follow-ups and financials. And yes, if you'll notice, it's easy for me to remember. Tuesdays and Thursdays, those are the times I'll do one-on-ones with people. Wednesdays, client dive. I do client work on Mondays and Wednesdays. Fridays, as a follow-up, I do. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays are mostly my meeting and interview days. So I have a rhythm to my weekly flow of things. And that helps me then appropriate the time for specific activities and projects when I commit it to the calendar. And setting that time frame, that includes everything from the prep time to do the activity, like setting up. I have a dual purpose room office. I have to do a setup and a tear down when I want to have a guest in here to do a podcast, because I need to, add some extra foam in the room, softness in the room so that the audio is okay. Well, that's setting up and that's tearing down. I need to put that time on the calendar to manage that expectation of how much I'm going to get done in a day. So think about that too. And then, of course, barring all the natural disasters, you'll also take that final look at your calendar and say, barring a natural disaster, what else? Am I missing anything else? What do I need to pay attention to that could cause a change in this schedule? So That way you've got one final look before you're executing. And then you just do it. You start working it every day because now you've committed to the activities that are important to fuel the objectives that feed that vision of making a great impact for your best buyer and your target audience in the world. Getting it down to that key activity and a rhythm for your week gets you that progress that you're looking for. And there will come a tipping point, that compound effect. If you've never read that book by Darren Hardy, I highly recommend it. It's the compound effect that will hit a tipping point and then exponential growth happens. But you have to get everything that you're wanting done down to key activities in a rhythm on your committed calendar. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Because I was like, that was a good point, and I don't want to break that moment. But I do want to come back to, kind of wrapping this up. Remember, I want the lagoon pool, not the above ground pool. So I have to come back to set my expectations and then actually develop a plan of action based on my strategy that I have thought through. I feel good about it. I know this is going to, I'm confident with it. My plan of action is getting things down into those key activities that I'm committing to on the calendar. I do a rinse and repeat weekly on that specific month's work toward an objective so that I stay on track. You guys, my productivity is high level. I do manage to get a lot done. People are, how do you even sleep? And again, back to my frustration of my body needs at least 7 hours. I get sleep. May not be the best in the world sleep, but sometimes it's getting better. But I have the same amount of hours that you do. I may not have children, but I have other things that still take my attention away from my work. I still have a lot of that stuff happening just like you do in the world. This, what I've just shared with you, is how I get it down to a focused level. Now, do I still catch myself scrolling whatever social channel out there and realize I'm in a time suck? Yes, I do catch myself. That's the point, though. I catch myself. So another little tip, I keep a Post-it note that literally says, when you're brain dead, do these things. And one of those is just go read a book. If I'm brain dead, I know part of what gets me to a better place is studying something new. Go read a book, get out of the scroll mode, go read a book. When I need to be able to feel better about prepping, but I don't want to go read a book. Like, and the next thing on the list is clean up my digital files. That doesn't take a ton of effort. I just need to go through and do it a little at a time. When I'm working with tens of thousands of pictures and videos in my digital files, that stuff's got to get cleaned up. And I'm the one that knows what everything is. So that's on me. I got to get it done. But I also have in place what my systems are. I see what my systems are. When I catch myself in a scroll mode, I can stop it because I'm seeing it and I feel it. And I'll just, if I have no idea of what I want to do next, I go to that list. I'm prepped for that moment. These are the things that I do. I'm now sharing with you. So I hope this episode, you have found some value in it. I've given you a lot of stuff. This is what I would work through people in workshops and retreats for, is to be able to help you get your shit together. So ideally, that's what this episode helps you do, is, get your shit together a little bit more than usual. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for continuing to join us in this show, Small Business Success Talk. I have been your host, and today your strategist and trainer, Christy Smallwood. Thank you so much, and catch you again on the next episode of Small Business Success Talk.